Today I've got a project that's going to increase the longevity and reliability of an air compressor. The one I'm doing it on is a snap-on air compressor, but this can be done to any air compressor. Almost all of them have the same problem. They've got a fan in the middle and the head is up here. The head's the hottest part, no air goes over it. But anyway, let's get started. We're going to have to go back first to almost a year ago when I first thought about doing this. I was over at a friend's shop and I noticed he has a lot smaller air compressor, but it has a shroud like I'm planning on building for this air compressor to push the air over the top of the head. And I don't know why they don't do that with these big compressors. And I'll put a link to that video up here. And one other thing we're going to do today, we're going to use some of this stuff. That's right. I'm actually going to paint something that I make. Let's get started. Oh yeah, almost forgot. If you need a comfortable chair for your shop, I'll put a link to this chair up there. When you go to the thrift store to get an office chair for a base, get the shortest one you can find, because this one's all the way down and it's not quite short enough. What I'm going to do here is set up a temperature probe so I can put it on the head of the compressor and see how much the temperature increases with the prototype cardboard airflow diffuser over it. And then I'm going to do it again with that off of it and see how well it works. This will be a very unscientific scientific test. That little piece of blue towel is to add a little bit of insulation so the outside air temperature doesn't mess with my readings. And I'm using this tape here next to the temperature probe so that it'll be easier to take back off, I hope. And I'm going to attach this to the center of the cylinder head, or as close thereabouts as I can. This isn't going to work as well as I'd hoped. Originally I thought I would run it from where it cuts on to where it cuts off by its own pressure regulator. But I think what I'll do to get a better test and a longer run is I'll drain the tank completely and let it fill all the way up. That'll give it a longer run, a longer time for temperature to stabilize with the airflow and the heat buildup in the head, stuff like that. So I'm going to bleed it all the way out and hit the stopwatch as soon as I start it, and we'll see how hot it gets with this on it, and then we'll take it off. This is not perfect. This could probably stand to be a little bit closer, but I just want to find out if this does help or hurt. All right. Air blowing against my hand right there. And here. Not quite as much here. Right here I can feel it. It's moving right in here. about 150 psi. Under 7 minutes to all the way full, and cutoff is at 175, and it's 167 degrees at stop. So what I'm going to do now is see what it's at approximately 5 minutes and at approximately 10 minutes. See how much heat is built up in the head actually. Well, after about a minute and a half, the temperature is actually dropping. So there is no heat buildup in the head. Excessive heat, heat soak type heat. I imagine that would be a little bit different if it was 85 or 90 degrees out here instead of 50, but. And at 5 minutes, we're at 152 degrees. So we're 10 minutes after shutdown. And it looks like 136 degrees. Forward edge of the head. You can hold your hand on it, but that's about it. Back edge of the head. Probably a little bit warmer than the front. But we're going by the temperature probe to find out what happens. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take all this off. I'm going to let this cool off for a few hours so it's cool all the way through. I'm going to actually put a fan up here and blow air across it to cool it off faster, but I'm going to leave it for a couple hours and do the same test again without the shroud and see how hot the top of the head gets. So after 30 minutes of having the fan on it, it's back down to actually right about the temperature I started the first test at. But I'll give it at least another 30 minutes for everything to equalize so that we have a good fair test. And then we will try it again, see what it does without the shroud. Alright, we're going to do the same thing again without the shroud. Temperature is about 8 degrees warmer, 7 degrees warmer than it was as far as outside temperature. Temperature at the cylinder head is about the same as we started at before. I've drained the tank all the way. I'm going to run it all the way up and see how warm it gets. Started the stopwatch a little bit late, but we're at 184 right now, which is about 17 degrees hotter than last time. Not sure. Alright, we're going to do the same thing, see what it's at 5 minutes, see if it goes up or down. Yeah, it made it to about 17 or 18 degrees hotter without the shroud, and that's at a temperature of 55 degrees, I believe we started at this time. So there is a difference in temperature, and I think that difference in temperature would be a lot more if it was 85 or 90 degrees out here. So the temperature is dropping steadily. right about 3 minutes after shutdown, and it's 166. These are the numbers I wrote down from both tests. Like I said, it was a little hotter outside, a little warmer outside when we started. Empty start 55 and I think 57. But here's the numbers that really matter. Even though, you know, around 50 degrees outside, 167, 184, 17 degrees hotter by the time it stopped running all the way up on just one cycle. The peak was 171 and the peak on this one was 186. After 5 minutes, they were both cooling down pretty well, and after 10 minutes. This one got a little bit warmer, a minute and a half after it stopped because there's no more airflow, so it did start to go up. This one peaked after only like 28 seconds, and the highest I saw was 186 because there was no change in airflow. Now, if it was 90 degrees outside or 85, which it normally is around here, these temperatures would be a lot different. In other words, with no extra airflow, I think this would have gone a lot higher. And with the airflow, this one would have gone somewhat higher. So, what have I learned with this temporary air duct experiment? Well, I've learned that it's 17 degrees cooler, even when the air temperature is around 50 degrees. I learned that my air compressor blew a head gasket after only 320 hours, which tells me that it does need some extra cooling across the top of the head. And after doing this little bit of an experiment, I know this will help. My next step is to break out the sheet metal and build one of these out of sheet metal. So the next video will be sheet metal fabrication of an air duct for a snap-on air compressor. Thanks for watching. Getting trim closer to shape, just kind of rolled those edges. This one I just put it in the brake and just pushed up on it, slid it out. You can do that over any straight edge though. I've got the most complicated parts of it cut out now. All I need to do now is cut my side strip, which is basically just a straight 2-inch wide strip of metal. And I think I've also decided that I'm going to add a strip of metal down the inside here so that the air spinning with the fan will be directed more just right over the top of the head. I don't know if it'll help that much, but I think it's something I'm probably going to go ahead and do. All right, all the pieces are here. Now all we got to do is make a nice little curve out of that. Nice, perfect curve. Nice little kink in it right there. And the same on the other side. And I got my inner baffle. All right, time to move to the other table. I like moving to this table. It means I'm almost done. Well, except for this project, I'm actually going to paint because it's going to be outside. So there'll be one more step on this one than there is on most of my projects. I like to let them develop that rustic patina. Actually, I'm just too lazy to take the time to paint. All right, all I've got to do now is jig this thing up, start tacking it together. The original plan for this thing is that it's split down the middle and goes on the compressor in 2 halves. But what I'm going to try to do is tack it together and see if it will go onto the compressor in one piece by wiggling it on down onto there. That'll save me having to split it and put screws down the middle or whatever. So we'll see how that works as we get going. Guess what? Well, if you guessed that it won't go in one piece, you guessed right. Got to cut it in half, make some tabs, screw it together. All right, let's see if we can get this thing installed without taking all the paint off of it. It's dried overnight and, well, it fit before I painted it. All right, let's see if we can get this thing in here. I got the wrong side. All right, yeah, this one should fit a lot better on this side. I know it's going to scrape up the paint pretty good, but I got a little piece of cardboard here to at least keep the paint on the side that you'll be able to see when you open the door. Hey, that worked pretty good. I think most of the paint's still on it. Now we will see if we can get this one in as easy. Should be a lot easier. It doesn't have to wedge in between anything. And I've already drilled a couple pilot holes to make it easier to mount this air shroud. We're in the home stretch. All right, reach over the top, stretch. One in the back corner, and because I can't put a screw down here anywhere, I've drilled a small hole in that, and if that rattles, I'll just put a tie wrap through and make sure it doesn't rattle against that. We'll see how this works. Getting ready to fire it up. Oh, might want to tighten that bolt. All right, see what happens. The compressor's too full to start. Bleed off some air. All right, let's fire this thing up. Take 2. Switch on. I can feel air blowing against my hand right there now. All the way across there. Yeah. Used to be all the air you felt was right in here. Now there's air going over the hottest part of the compressor. I got that little guide vane in there. I don't even know if you can hear me over this noise. I got that little guide vane in there to kind of direct that air right over the hottest part. Well, there you go. I'd have to call that a success. Since I've had this compressor, like I said before, it's very rarely starts more than 2 times in an hour. But the guy I got it from had a paint and body shop, so it did run pretty heavy before I got it. So I figured that's where the heat got into that head and, you know, cycled on, cycled off, running multiple air tools, stuff like that. But I can pretty much guarantee that if it blows a head gasket again, it's going to be because I put it in wrong, or I did something wrong while I was installing it, not because it overheated. Thanks for watching. Like, subscribe, and I'm going to call this a success.